I invite you to take this moment to hold our space here as sacred by remaining muted throughout the service and preparing yourself to be present online or in person. We're grateful for this time together.
Tell you you are anything less than beautiful. How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Hello, I'm Reverend Denise Cawley. My pronouns are she and hers, and I'm a chaplain in Wisconsin, and I'm delighted to be meeting with you all today. We have chosen to bring ourselves here to this sanctuary to gather as a community of faith. We join together in solidarity as a covenanted people who are drawn together by the promise of connection and the mysterious pull of the unanswerable. As seekers, wanderers, appreciators of nature, and creators of connection, our paths have converged today so that we might become present to the spirit that is worship, and so let us worship together. Each week it's our tradition to light a chalice, which casts a circle of light to hold us all. As we create anew the symbol of our shared faith, let's reflect on these words titled The Pride Flame by Linda Lee Fansom. Now, even though you're at home, I'm going to invite you to say what's sort of a refrain in this chalice lighting with yourself alone or whoever you're with, or talk to your beloved animals in the room. So, as a congregation, I will motion to you when it's time to say, "We light this flame." You don't need to unmute yourselves, but we're just going to say that because it helps us be more embodied. We light this flame to ignite our hearts and minds, the spark of knowledge that enlightens, the shimmering hope that burns, the blazing love that engulfs our actions, the bonfire of our commitment. We light this flame. For those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who persevere, who are on the side of love for all, we light this flame. For those who have been ridiculed, that they may find peace. For those who have fought to marry, that they may celebrate and not lose that right. For those who live in the uncertainty in the world, which we all do, that they may have hope. We light this flame. To renew our commitment that no one shall ever again suffer for the right to love. We light this flame. We light this flame. To celebrate our kaleidoscope of diversity, working, loving, and living on the side of love. For this, we light this flame.
We affirm our mission to encourage, equip, and empower, and we ask that you join in the affirmation of our covenant with one another. We renew this promise by reading our covenant together, which has been posted into the chat. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now I'd like to share our Time for All Ages story with you. It is called Rainbow Allies, the true story of kids who stood against hate, written by Nancy Chernin and illustrated by Izzy Evans. In Natick, Massachusetts, there is a neighborhood that looks like many other cities. It isn't the biggest or the fanciest. Many pass through not realizing the secret that makes it shine. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is celebrated. Everyone helps each other. Kids play at each other's houses, dogs greet one another on walks, and adults buy lemonade from the children's stands when people move in. Neighbors bring a bounty of food from different cultures so they can enjoy the many flavors of their new home. When Carrie, one of the neighbors, married, everyone was happy to meet her wife, Lori. Their dogs, Twink and Scout, were welcome too. "We've got something for you," Brendan, one of the neighborhood kids, said, pulling dog biscuits from a bowl. Twink and Scout smothered Brendan, Landon, and Summer with kisses. They wagged tails as they crunched treats. "Twink and Scout say thank you," Carrie said as they bought lemonade. Landon saw a bright cloth peeking out of Lori's bag. "What's that?" he asked. "It's a rainbow flag," Lori said, pulling it out to show them. "Do you think it will look nice on our house?" "It's beautiful," Summer said, her fingers tracing the bright colors. "Can we help you put it up?" Brandon asked. Landon nodded eagerly. "We have a ladder," Dummer said. Carrie and Lori loved their neighborhood, where everyone was welcome. Then, one day, when Brandon passed their house, something felt wrong. He squeezed his brakes. It was too quiet. No Twink or Scout scampering to greet him. He didn't even hear a bark. And something else was missing. Was it their flag? Brendan saw Carrie and Lori scrubbing sticky bits of yolk from their walls and windows. Twink and Scout were whimpering, hurled in balls by their feet. A broken mount swayed where the flag had waved. "What happened?" Brandon whispered. Carrie told him that they'd found the house this way when they got home. "Why?" Brandon felt the hurt his friends were feeling like a stone in his stomach. Nothing like this had ever happened in his neighborhood before. "Maybe someone doesn't like our flag," Lori said. "Maybe somebody doesn't like us," Carrie added. "Can you get another flag?" Brandon asked. "And have someone do this again?" Lori wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry, Brandon. I thought this was a neighborhood where everyone is welcome. But now..." That was what Brendan loved about his neighborhood too, that everyone was welcome. Had it changed? Was it broken like Carrie and Lori's flag? How could it be fixed? How could Carrie and Lori feel welcome again? Brandon pedaled slowly to the lemonade stand. He told his friends what had happened. Summer kicked a rock. "Why would anyone do that?" she asked. They thought and thought. None of them had an answer. So they thought of another question. "What can we do?" Summer said at last. "I've seen rainbow flags at a store," Landon said. "Can we get them another one?" Brandon sighed. Lori is worried that somebody might steal it or egg their house again. Summer lined up some paper cups and pushed them close together. "What if we built a wall around their house?" Brandon scratched his head. "Or we could set up a patrol and take turns guarding their porch." Landon clenched his fists. "Or we could find out who did this and egg their house too." But none of their ideas seemed right for a neighborhood where everyone was welcome. They didn't want to separate their friends with a wall or treat others like enemies. They needed to find a way to bring everyone together, to show love that was big enough to heal the hurt. Then suddenly a plan came to them. But would it work? Could they get other kids to help? Would their neighbors come through? Brandon, Landon, and Summer biked to the store that had the flags. They told the man at the counter what they wanted to do. He grinned. "Take as many as you want," he said. He helped load them on their bikes. As they rolled by, kids playing in the street asked what they were doing with the flags. Soon a parade was biking, scootering, and walking to every house in the neighborhood. "Yes," people said, "yes. as they took the flags one by one. Not everyone had a mount, but everyone took a flag. Some hung a flag on a door, some across the porch, some on a fence, and one in a big tree. The children brought the last flag to Carrie and Lori's house. They cheered as Carrie and Lori hung the flag on the door. Twink and Scout jumped and slobbered on their hands and faces. Together, Carrie, Lori, adults and kids walked up and down the bumpy sidewalks. Together, they admired how all of the families were different, but united, like the different colors in the rainbows of the flag. The children waved goodbye to Carrie, to Lori, to each other, to everyone, glowing with pride as they biked, scootered, and walked home. The kids had done it. They'd taken something broken and made it beautiful. Once again, their neighborhood was a place where everyone is welcome, where everyone is celebrated, where everyone helps each other.
Thank you for that lovely story. I'm going to share another story with you as part of our meditation. And then after I share the story about the author of the story, Lee Kniv, whose pronouns are they, them, then I will say a prayer. And as you hear the words, ask yourself, am I safe enough to be myself, whoever you are? And am I creating a place in this world for others to bloom into their full selves? We start with a quote by author Bell Hooks, all about love, where she says, the practice of love offers no place of safety. 30 years ago, Lee's story begins, the pink triangle button pinned on my jacket identified me as queer. My t-shirt said silence equals death and No on 9, an evangelical right-wing group, had gotten an initiative on the ballot to amend the Oregon Constitution to ban LGBTQ civil rights protections and label us as abnormal, wrong, unnatural, and perverse, says Lee. Already deep in the fight against AIDS, our community was plunged into a dehumanizing, demeaning debate about whether we were dangerous sexual predators. The stakes were high, the intense homophobia and fear of danger were real. One day I pulled into a gas station where I wasn't sure I was safe being out. I found myself taking my pink triangle button off my jacket, although nothing about how I looked didn't signal dyke. After I drove away, I was flooded with a sense of regret. This was not how I wanted to be, but I believed in all my heart that this persistent, obvious queer presence would save us, and I had betrayed my heart. I couldn't shake the feeling, and soon I sewed pink triangle patches onto my jackets and clothes. Invisibility equals silence. Silence equals death. Decades later, I figured out that I'm trans non-binary. Embracing this has brought tremendous joy and energy and has deepened my authenticity with the world. Using they, them, their pronouns reminds me of that pink triangle patch. Every day I face the question, do I assert, request, correct, here, now? Each time I'm able to answer yes, I experience a teeny sense of nudging toward life. There currently are waves of bills targeting and oppressing trans and non-binary people and their families throughout legislatures across the country in school districts. The stakes are still high all around. As Jewish author and activist Emma Lazarus taught us back in 1883, until we are all free, none of us are free. Take a breath, whatever's comfortable to you, and join me in the spirit of prayer. God of all the names and no names at all, help me live into gratitude for the LGBTQ plus ancestors who paved this road we walk and roll on. Stay with me when I am feeling scared of doing brave, courageous things, and nudging us forward. Amen.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Now is the time when we engage as a community in the sharing of our joys and sorrows, our concerns and milestones. When we join together to hold each other in support and in celebration, we deepen our sense of interrelationship. We may find our sorrows eased and our joys magnified. I invite you now to share them, asking you to remain muted, but to type your joys and sorrows in the chat box, and then I will read them aloud. Shared or unshared, our hearts join with yours in carrying all that life brings. We'll take a minute as people type, and then I will read aloud. Denise Scotland writes, "It was a joy once again seeing UCH so well represented at Central PA's Pride Fest yesterday." Jim Kavanaugh writes, "I am glad I could help represent UCH at Pride yesterday, and sad that I have less energy each year. I may need to give up or do it very differently." Dan Vaughn writes, "I am overjoyed with getting to glitter bless so many beautiful people yesterday." Reverend Denise writes, "Sorrow for the people who are starving in Gaza." Diggs from our tech team writes, "A joy. Yesterday I attended the Central PA Pride Festival and my spirits were bolstered by the number of lovely queers and allies that were present. I had an amazing time and look forward to next year. Thanks for the glitter blessing, Dan." We'll give it another uh, just under a minute or so for anybody else who might be typing. All right. For all that has been shared and those many concerns we hold deep in our hearts and yet remain unspoken, we journey with each other in love.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing and for all the joys and sorrows we know are unspoken, like Amy said. Unitarian Universalism challenges us to work on new ways of thinking, acting, and being. We really don't mean just to say it. We really mean to do it. One thing that is very clear from all of our affirmations that we've put into General Assembly and the various statements on public witness and things that we've issued over decades is we have a long-term commitment to affirm and celebrate the lives of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. And that, of course, always intersects with all of our other marginalized identities, from any of us who are disabled, BIPOC, um, living at various levels of class, um, just all the ways that any marginalized community is impacted. It's never a standalone issue. So all of those issues interact with race and gender and sexuality, and they're all different, and yet so many of them converge. So even if you don't identify with one of those identities, you love someone who does. Queer theology is a newer theology that has been developing for about 70 years. Now, 70 might sound old, but it's very young when it comes to a theology. For some folks who are about 60 or older, queer was often a derogatory word, and I want to hold that space where that word might hold pain. Some look at one definition of queer as to sully or to spoil. And this word has been reclaimed by many, but not all, in the LGBTQ community. And today we're on a journey where we're going to expand queer to show us how to get out of a spoiled, obsolete way of thinking into something that is expansive, giving attention to the fullness of who we are as human beings. And if this is a new way of thinking for you, that is okay. We can all be on different points in the journey, and we can all love one another as we all learn together. Queer as a theological term is best understood as a verb or an action. That is, to queer something is to engage in a methodology that challenges or disrupts the status quo. Growing up, I heard a lot of gay people being made fun of, even if they were friends with our family. Someone might say gay, transvestite, dyke, or fag, or cross-dresser with derogatory tones or offensive hand gestures, making fun of people. Sometimes that was followed up with a line about how the person really was good, but there was often a but. Queer was one of those words that wasn't said with love. And it taught me not to turn into one of those people. Don't be gay or wear clothes that don't conform to a gender marker. Yet I found myself hanging out with the kids who perhaps were sensitive boys or in touch with their feelings, which we know is so healthy, or strong girls among many fabulous kids. Some days I loved fancy dresses, and other days I wanted to be in Levi's or overalls. But on those days, my grandma might tell me to be a proper young lady. As time went on, I was often attracted to girls, I liked some boys, but more girls. After I dated women, I thought I was done with men, and I was relieved to just be a lesbian. Phew. But I also thought about what to call myself that was accurate and positive in an ongoing struggle. I thought I could finally stop worrying about that. And let me tell you, life likes to play with you when you think you have things all figured out. Early in the 1990s, when I began my LGBT activism, I often encountered older folks in the community who were incredibly hurt by the word queer. And while I avoided using that word, youth I volunteered with really embraced the word queer. And I struggled with how to keep everyone happy. I was in love with a woman who I later became my wife of more than 2 decades, and calling myself a lesbian seemed correct. Then more and more letters started to be added to the LGBTQ alphabet, and I struggled more again to give everyone the identity they sought, to self-define themselves, and yet to try to find a way to say things succinctly. I often volunteered and later was hired to do public relations and fundraising for LGBT causes, and it was an ongoing evolution of names and terminology. Often I was asked to explain, is queer a bad word? Is queer a gender or a sexuality? Why don't you use that word? Why do you use that word? As time went on, queer was used more and more as a blanket term that meant all the things. It took the whole alphabet of names and identities and sexualities and genders and more and gave me one word to encompass it all. In my heart, I wasn't sure I liked the ambiguity and many meanings of queer. And then I went to seminary. In seminary, the word queer was taught not just as a gender or sexuality. It didn't mean questioning, but indicated something philosophical, even political. Soon after I took courses in queer theology, that is when the meaning really expanded and opened up my thinking, acting, and doing. That was fundamentally a creative and empowering act. To queer something is to expand possibility, to act in love, to be creators of possibility. Queering something was empowering. Now, you might be thinking, I am not queer. Why or does this apply to me? Good question. Our faith calls us to break the bystander effect. We don't want to be bystanders. To say something, to do something more is what our faith encourages us. Many of us find our spirituality in nature. And if you think about it, nature is about as queer as it gets. Rather than one right tree, there are thousands of trees, and each tree has thousands of leaves, but each leaf is a little bit different. Nature, in its healthiest form, constantly strives for variation. Reverend Dr. Lightsey, a queer womanist theologian who teaches at Meadville Lombard and was one of my professors and one of my heroes now, she's a great author, reminds us that queer theology works through relationship, not hierarchy, just as nature does. That really spoke to my heart. I needed to learn more about this. Queer theology asks, rather than focus on one discriminatory practice over another, instead hold that our relationships honor many ways of being, as it does in nature. Honoring the gifts and characteristics of everyone is how we build relationships between communities. It's how we do coalition work. Queering our theology, queering our communities is a journey. It's not compartmentalizing causes, but rather an excursion toward giving attention to the fullness of who we are as human beings. Thus, we honor how we are all important in this interconnected system. This is how we will show that racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, they're all equally discriminatory and connected. Queering means to eliminate the false binaries of good versus evil, light versus dark, black or white, Christian or Jewish, straight or gay, transgender or queer. These concepts are self-righteous and sure of themselves. There is no room in them for both and. These contrasting definitions show the world as a place defined by borders and edges that you can fall off of, and an infallibleness that lends itself to unachievable perfection, damning failure. Queering is the antithesis of how we have been taught to see the world in this culture. Now, by that point in my life, I was middle-aged. I no longer saw life as so simple to put into categories. Was it wrong to steal? What if you stole to feed your hungry family? Never was this clearer to me than when I was a chaplain at Planned Parenthood. I was learning all the complexities that brought people to the clinic. It was not about abortion being good or bad, but about a healthcare system that caters to corporations, a political system anchored in oppression. It was about scarcity and lack of respect for families, scientists, women, indigenous, Black and brown people, as well as a voting system rooted in power over patriarchy. And it was about a lack of respect or care for humans. Listening to patients at the clinic describe their situations, I realized the debates about one way to fix this or that were never going to work. These problems of our world were not going to be solved with one solution, but needed many ideas happening all at the same time. Nor was one oppression more important than another, but they were all linked. Now in life, I see things as very complex, and solutions take discernment. Queering requires spiritual maturity to look at things in a complex manner. It means taking in lots of factors and finding really creative solutions. Now I've fallen in love with this word queer. Queer theology points out that limiting ourselves to categories for gender, sexuality, philosophy, and justice requires more expansive thought than even the alphabet of LGBTQIA+ categories can offer. For example, Reverend Dr. Lightsey says a biological female might be attracted to a biological male only because that male's gender performance is feminine. The attraction this biological female has for this biological male thus falls under the same gender-loving construct, queer, eh? The definition of queer expanded, and so did my expression of myself. I had felt attraction and crushes on people of many gender identities. In seminary, I had separated from my wife, and I was going through a deep journey of asking myself who I was and how I could be my most sincere, best self. Naming and identifying myself as queer felt more true to my heart. Friends I made are not defined by gender or sexuality by their heart, but instead by their heart and values. And this also aligns with my faith. Look for values we have in common. Look for ways to include more. Queer has felt right for how to identify myself, but how to also identify my theology. Theologian Patrick Chang describes queer theology as a way of moving away from Eurocentric interpretations of Christianity that are rooted in an either-or way of seeing the world. That view is literally killing LGBTQ plus people. Chang goes on to explain that in queer theology, the boundaries between God and me begin to dissolve. In fact, this term is best understood as a verb or an action. That is, to queer something is to engage in a methodology that challenges and disrupts the status quo. talk about God by and for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, questioning people as well as our allies. Over and over and over again, you can simply use the term queer theology as shorthand. Queer theology refers to a way of doing theology that brings down the powerful and lifts up the lowly. This theology seeks to unearth silenced voices, hidden perspectives, which our faith clearly has lifted up in countless public witness statements for decades. More recently, some people ask, my new husband, as of 2 weeks ago, Reverend Matt Aspen, what is it like to be in relationship with a queer woman? He reminds them that we are in a queer relationship, even if it might appear to others to conform to heteronormativity. It is not. I assure you, my identity is tied to my heart and soul and not defined by the gender expression or sexuality of the person I partner with. When I hear Unitarian Universalists talk about anti-racism, I hear them asking us to explore and act in new ways of thinking and doing. That's what queering is. It is applying a new way of thinking. Becoming anti-racist, we might say, is to queer our thinking around white culture. I'm inviting you behind the curtain to understand queer culture in a manner that extends beyond gender and sexuality to a way of looking at every problem with new eyes. Look for paths outside of the traditional binary either-or ways. Queer is egalitarian. Queer is available to everybody. Theology is studying the mysterious, the meaning of the mysterious, the study of ways in which we think about faith. Theology sermons challenge our intellectual side and then look at how we can take all that matters and all of that manner of looking at life and our communities and the world and use it. As Unitarian Universalists, I wonder how queer theological framework of how we can help us do more loving, do the work of improving our communities. Would queering our faith help release ourselves from white supremacy culture that focuses on concepts like now, fastest, best, right, wrong, and other absolute definitions? Could we be able to queer them to help us explore possibilities rather than absolute perfectionism, which just isn't achievable? Unitarian Universalist educator and co-author of the Transforming Hearts curriculum, Alex Capitan says, queering faith means turning social conventions upside down. Reverend Dr. Lightsey says, guided by fear of sexuality, the ultimate human existential unknown condition, we dig deep into our positions and refuse to simply say, I don't know. Admitting what we don't know will free us to work with what we do know. Because we don't fully understand human sexuality, what can we do with what we do know? Same with gender. What can we do with what we do know? Begin by loving ourselves. This is not something you can learn and master or achieve, but something to practice. I invite you to try new ways of thinking. Practicing is like being an artist of possibility. Maybe we can find ways that are not blue and yellow, but instead create green. Let us paint new art together, friends. Let us be artists of possibility. Let us queer our world into colors of loving. If you are thinking to yourself, this sounds a little ambiguous, you're correct. Ambiguity is what makes Unitarian Universalists a queer theology. Let us use this queering of our faith to find new ways to act out justice, to be anti-racist, to create peace, and to love up our people. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. It's now time when we call for our offering. The Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is, as always, an intentionally gathered congregation of freely thinking, loving people. The church is created, sustained, and supported by us. Each week, we take up an offering where we ask each other to share money to support the church. We also use half of this money to help a charity, which is doing important work to improve the world. For the month of July, we are sharing with Peace Promise. Peace Promise addresses the complexities of sex trafficking in the Harrisburg region by offering outreach and intervention, support and training, education and awareness, and economic empowerment for those who have experienced the weight of sexual exploitation. They partner with survivors in their healing process to provide for practical needs like housing and employment, while also addressing emotional support and life skills training to equip survivors to thrive in their journey to freedom. If you wish to contribute online, please visit uchbg.org and scroll to the bottom of the page for options. Your financial support and commitment matter. Please consider giving what you are able. We dedicate the gifts of contribution to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry of compassion and action, faith and fellowship, hope and wholeness.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are trans and cis together when we are singing, singing for our lives. We are trans and cis together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all in this together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all in this together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
It's all beautiful. Thank you for having me today. I close with Blessed Are the Queer by our colleague H.P. Rivers. Blessed are the wanderers seeking affirmation. Blessed are the worshipers praying from closets, pulpits, pews, and hardship. Blessed are the lovers of leaving family and familiarity, leaving tables where love is not being served. Blessed are those who stay. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the queer, disciples of truth, living, breathing, sacred reflections of divine love. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth. Go in peace or join us for coffee hour, and know that you are loved. May you queer your ways. Amen.